Happy New Year, everybody, or happy whatever year you're watching this video currently in. I always believe that board games can be timeless, and it doesn't matter how old or new board games are, you can enjoy them whenever you want. And in this video, I'm going to be going through my top 10 anticipated board games that I'm going to be playing in 2025. However, there is a twist. All of my top 10 anticipated board games are already currently sitting on my shelf. Yes, I already own these 10 games. I'm looking forward to playing these 10 games either for the first time or more often throughout this year. Hi, my name's Danny. I'm an avid modern board gamer from Australia who loves sharing my passion for modern board gaming with you, my friends, and my family. Come and join me for this journey. Let's go! So as I wander around my board game collection and look at all the games that I've kind of collected, gathered, played, or acquired throughout time, I often hear people talking about the latest or newest board games. And it kind of makes me think, yeah, I'm probably one of those people who watches everyone else's anticipated lists and kind of compiles a little list of games I'm excited about. But then it got me thinking about, just really enjoying the great games I already have. And so as I was pondering through and looking at my collection, I was like, you know what? There's probably 10, maybe 20 or 50 board games I probably need to play a little bit more often. And there are certain moments where I'm like, oh man, I wish I could play that game again. Oh, I really need to table that game. And I guess that's where the passion and the energy for compiling this list comes from. And these are just 10 games I want to play this year that I already have. I don't have to wait for a Kickstarter for it to arrive. I don't have to spend extra money, or I don't have to see if other people like it. I've already got these games, and why not just enjoy the games I already have? When I was younger, I used to love reading books like The Rats of Nim, and even as an adult, I love reading graphic comics like Mouse Guard. This next game is by an acclaimed Euro designer who doesn't usually dabble in this mouse theme. Usually they're designing games centered around ancient civilizations, but Simone Luciani has released a game that has been sitting on my shelf for a while called The Rats of Wistar. It is a Euro game which has this interesting wheel mechanism which is combined with worker placement. And as players place their rats on different spaces on the wheel, depending on how many other mice they have in that region of the board, that's going to be the strength of the action that they can take. What's really cool about this game is that there's a few interlocking mechanisms. The idea that this rotational wheel will give you different pathways to pursue. It might be exploring. It might be gathering resources. It could be expanding your little rat house by uncovering and digging for more rooms. What's really cool about this game is it comes with about 165 different invention cards that have tags and different abilities that kind of bounce off each other and give you a lot more to actually do. This is a game I haven't tabled yet, but it's one that, because of the theme alone and the pedigree of the designer, is one that I really want to play. Whilst I looked at the rule book and it kind of feels a little bit middle to heavy in terms of its weight, it's definitely one I'm keen to play more of. Game number 9 is a very famous Reiner Knizia game, and in fact when I've played a lot of Reiner Knizia games, I've kind of got a lukewarm affinity with some of his game designs. Some I really enjoyed, and some I'm like, oh okay, this kind of feels a bit rushed. This game, however, is one that I've wanted to play for a long time, and I recently just came across it by accident, and it's actually a re-envisioning of the original game. It's a game where you'll be leading a herd of camels through the desert as you're basically looking for water holes, connecting to oases, and you're basically carving out different regions in the desert. It is a very easy to learn game because you are basically faced with this giant puzzly map, and players are kind of slowly meandering across the sands by placing different colored camels out so that they can lead their leader or their caravan to different certain points. And in kind of like a semi-ticket to ride style, you're essentially going to get in each other's way. The more you place these camels out, the more you carve out the landscape, and you can actually score really big points by creating a big boundary around an area, because you'll get points at the end of the game for each water holes that are enclosed in this area. There are also little palm trees which are an oasis, which if you connect to them, you get like a certain level of points. And so as the game kind of builds up, and everyone creates these different multicolored camel trails, you're going to kind of block each other off. You're going to secure different sections for yourself, and you're going to deny different spaces from other players. I'm really, really interested in the spatial puzzle that this game really presents. I'm excited to give this one a try. This is a game that has you building parts of Rome, and you're doing it in a way where you're not building the city per se, but you're actually employing the people that come to your city. It's a game called Discordia, and Discordia is got an unusual twist to this civilization building genre. You are expanding your city borough by placing these expansion tiles and placing harbors, farms, markets, and also forts. And then you're going to draw these little workers that come out of the bag that come in 4 different colors, and you're going to try and employ these workers into your city. And there's no victory points in this game. This is a game where you win once you find a place for every worker, and that's such a unique twist to this kind of theme. And I like the idea that it's a puzzle, and it's really a color matching puzzle that you're trying to approach. You basically have these different tiles, so the red tiles are military, yellow is farming, blue is harbor, white is markets, and you've got to place those workers in their matching colors. Military, you're using it to ward off people that attack your city at the end of every round. You've got these harbors that turn into markets, which are like trade routes, and then you've got farming, which you can kind of expand into, but each color tile has dice numbers, and the action selection mechanism in this game is actually quite fun. You basically got 3 different colored dice that match up to the blue, red, and yellow tiles. And then basically what you're doing is whoever's the leader will get to draft one of those dice, and corresponding to whichever column they've taken that die from, they're the only ones that can take that action. The other 2 remaining dice are shared by the other players and used by the other players. So every time it is your turn, you'll always have exclusive use of the dice. Think of it as like the VIP club, but basically that's how it's going to work. And the boat is going to travel 4 times across the game, and if the game ends when someone has no more workers left, then they win. But whoever has the least amount of workers at the end of the game is also declared the winner. So one I definitely want to try. Number 7 on my list is a city building tile laying game with a lot more depth than appears at first glance. It's a city made out of ginkgo. I'm not sure if that's the kind of resource I would use to make a city, but that is the theme of this game. It is called Ginkgopolis. I've had this game for about 1.5 years now. Haven't actually been able to get to the table, but I've heard that it has a lot of thinky strategy to it, and I really want to play this maybe at the 3 or 4 player count, because I do believe that there's a whole lot more interesting interactions and dynamics at that play count. So basically in Ginkgopolis, you're going to be placing new building tiles out to expand the city. You're also going to be adding new levels to existing buildings, and then you're going to be placing your player markers on the buildings that you build, and that's going to kind of at the end of the game play into who has most dominance and presence in different aspects of the city. And so on your turn, you're going to be able to play a card from your hand, and if it's an urbanization card, you can kind of play like a little tile to go with it, and that's going to allow you to expand the city and the size of it. You can also play urbanization cards to get resources as well. You've also got building cards, and when you play a building card with a tile, you can place that building card on top of another building tile of that particular color, and then whoever's play is got pieces under that tile, they actually get all those pieces back, and now you have presence in that building. And based on the height of the buildings, that's going to increase the amount of presence tokens you can allocate. So if you've got a 3-story building, you'll be able to place 3 player tokens on top of it. And so you've got this kind of flow of expanding the city, construction sites, placing new levels on top, using different ability cards. And when you build a level, there are certain cards that give you bonuses that trigger off those particular actions, or there's bonuses, I think, when you expand. And so the synergy of not only placing the tiles, getting resources from the stacks, because you can also just claim resources from a stack from a particular color building to get resources equal to the height of that building, and then being able to spend those resources and use them to construct further buildings. So you know why there's a smile on my face, because game number 6 is basically a game that has, yes, a plant themed, yes, it's about looking after nature, and yes, it's a Euro, my favorite 3 things in board gaming. But this is a game where you're going to be taking on the role of a gardener that's looking after the botanical gardens, and there's some very high level people that are going to be visiting your garden. It's a puzzly game called Botanicus, and this has some really interesting things going on. I played this game once already, and I really enjoyed what it had to offer. You're basically managing your own private garden, which is kind of in rows and columns. You've got 4 different species of flowers in 4 different colors, and then they've got different levels of growth from 1 to 4. You've got different people who are going to come and inspect your garden and your work, which are set out in rows, and as you fulfill them, you can flip them over and then be given a harder and more difficult and challenging advance order to fulfill. By the end of the game, you want to fulfill those orders and complete different columns to make sure you score lots of points. And along the way, you're going to be getting moving along these tracks and also enticing animals. And if you're playing the advanced version, you've got a different configuration of gardens as well as different animals which have different like bonus powers. What's interesting about this game is the action selection mechanism. The turn order is going to change every single turn, and basically the action board has all these different columns, and the top action is usually like a weaker action and the bottom action is more powerful. And whoever chooses the top action is going to take make the first choice on the next turn, and whoever takes the most powerful action will take the last choice on the next turn. So do you keep taking really low level actions and stop other players from getting what they want, or giving them what they want, or giving them the power to choose what they want? Or do you take the really powerful actions and kind of take your chances on hoping that another player won't block you out? I mean, you can pay some coin to kind of take an action that other players are taking, and you've got all these multiple tracks that you're moving up, but there's a really great level of interaction and puzzliness that this game definitely evokes. Game number 5 on my list is a game that I actually saw quite a long time ago, but I kept walking past it and thinking, wow, it's such a colorful game. It had some like Chinese characters on it, and I was like, I really like the theme, I really like what it looks like, but then every time I looked on Board Game Geek, it kind of had like a overall BGG rating of 6.9. I was like, it's a little bit under my 7 threshold that I normally go for. And then more recently, it kept popping back up in my brain. I was like, you know what? Maybe I should just get that game. I just want to try it. I just want to play. I just want to see what it's like. It's about a particular location I've been to before in Italy, a place called Burano. Burano is a very interesting game about building different colored buildings that are represented by these 6 different colored wooden cubes and little roof tiles that you use to bridge them together. And so throughout the game, what you're going to be doing is your actions are going to be determined by this little cube-based pyramid that you're building on your player board. And on your turn, you'll be able to take the colored cubes off, put them in a reserve spot, and then those are the colored cubes you're going to be using to take your actions. And what you're going to be doing is, as you place your colored cubes out onto the island of Burano, if you can get 2 colored cubes that are the same and position them right, you'll be able to put a roof tile on it. And each of the roof tiles gives you 1 of 4 different ways of scoring. You'll be doing things like scoring for your majority on some of the neighboring islands, scoring for majority in the lace workshops, and scoring like a set number of victory points. And there's some interesting mechanisms that are kind of interwoven in this game. Each player kind of has this worker wheel, which has all your workers covering up different spaces around the different spokes. And the idea of the game is to try and get some of these workers off your board to uncover fountains, which will give you scoring points and also money. And you're trying to match the colors up into different areas. So if you're placing your workers into the lace workshop, you've got to place the worker and the color into that colored matching area. And if you've already started a little cluster of workers in the lace workshop, you've got to kind of continue by placing your workers adjacent to previously placed workers. And the little Tetris style puzzle that's over there is quite an interesting mini game in itself. You've then got these little exterior islands that you can go and fish at, but you also want area majority in those areas too. By placing more workers of your color, you'll be able to get more points when it comes to end of season scoring. And so you're trying to match the colors of the buildings on those fishing islands with the ones that you've already revealed on your player wheel. And then by doing that, you'll be able to offload more workers onto that island and knock other players' workers off the island. And so it has this interesting mechanism of uncovering things, gaining bonuses, and rotating the wheel and trying to match the colors of your wheels to the different colored areas of the board. Now, I need to take a deep breath with number 4 because this game is massive. This is probably one of the most rules dense Euro games I own in my collection, and I often really approach like this Vital Lacerda level games with a lot of trepidation because I often think of a balance between shall I spend, a couple of days learning rules compared to just enjoying games that are easy to get into. But this game just has a theme that really spoke to me, and it's kind of been one of those games that it made its mark where it's like, oh man, look at this really heavy game, but then it just kind of disappeared. I haven't heard about it for about 6 or 7 years. And then I was like, whatever happened to that Euro game? And then finally I found one of the last copies left, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna just get it, and I'm gonna treat myself to this game because it is just such a big box game. And it's actually a game called Agra. And this particular game has a reputation for having a lot of moving parts. But basically what you're doing is you're producing different types of goods. It almost has this narrative tale of you running your own little farm and your little production area, you producing the goods, you're then shipping and trading the goods, and then you're taking the goods to the capital city and then selling them and then gifting them to the ruler of India. You've got this interesting little square resource generating mechanism on your farm. You've got these little trails that you can kind of move along that give you certain further actions. You've got the 4 main actions at the top of the board, and then you're creating up to 16 different goods. Mind-boggling, 16 different goods. But the goods are all kind of represented by these little wooden pieces. And then you've got this kind of little 3D element at the end of the game where you've got the rule of India, and then you're placing these little columns on this slanted ramp. It all looks incredibly intimidating. I've watched about 4 videos in explaining how this game works, and I'm still kind of wrapping my head around how it all works. You've got buildings that you're going to be building. There's a whole river Ganges that you're trying to move up and down, and then you get cards, and these cards are little helper cards that give you little abilities. So it's got all those beautiful normal Euro elements that I've got, but it has this grandiose progression. It's like someone's just rolled out this beautiful red carpet, and you're just walking down this red carpet, and by the end you see everything that you've done, you've looked at everything along the way. I don't know if I can explain this game. This one is one that I'm I think I need to really play it to truly appreciate all the complexities inside it. And game number 3 is a game that is part of the T-Series line of games. If you've played games like Teotihuacan, Tawantinsuyu, or Tekenu, then this game fits into that Euro Ancient Civilization game series, except this one has had kind of a bit of a lukewarm rap. In fact, some people really don't like it, and some people are like, you know what? it's okay. It's got a lot of rules. It's a little bit heavier. And that's probably the reason why I haven't kind of gotten it to the table yet, is because of all these different perspectives I've heard about it. So I did nab the game and I did buy it, and I was like, you know what? I'll keep the game just so it completes the T series. Yes, the completionist in me kind of took over and was like, you know what? You just got to have it. I love the art on it, but I've yet to get this to the table, mainly because of the levels of complexity in explaining the game. So the game is called Tabannusi, Builders of Each different region of the game board has different places for dice to be placed. And so each region has like a different color associated with a numerical value. And basically the color is purely there for the resource. The numerical value is basically going to influence which region you're going to be taking your next action at. So if it is like a 5, then you take the 5, you get the resource, but the 5 is going to indicate that you're going to go to region 5 and do one of the 4 actions there. And each region has 4 different things you can do, and you could do 2 actions per region. 3 of the regions are purely all about building a city. And the city building mechanism is a little bit quirky in this game. And the more quirkier it is, I think the more interested I am. And basically you get points for putting out little plans, and you put your little disc on there. And if you cover different bonuses, you get those bonuses. But then another player can actually build a building on top of your plans. And you're building these building structures in clusters of 3. And so a plan that you place down is going to benefit another player. And so if they build on one of your plans, your disc gets knocked off, but you get to ascend one of the 3 different tracks. And the tracks act as multipliers for the different types of buildings that you've got. And you can see where this starts getting a little bit cloudy in terms of, why would I want to build that little plan there just so another player can build their building on top of something that I wanted to place? You can also put little waterways around your buildings, which allow you then to place gardens. They also give you other scoring and allow you to ascend the 3 different tracks. You've got this little shipping port area where if you line up all the discs in a column, you get an extra bonus. You can use their little abilities from these little sail tiles. Then you've got this little trade or ziggurat temple that you can go to, which gives you other different bonuses and scoring abilities. The whole thing is like a soup of dice moving, worker moving, city building, point scoring, multiplying bonanza. And you know what? It all appeals to me so much. Number 2 on my anticipated list is a game by a designer who has a very large pedigree and back catalog of board games, which the majority that I actually enjoy playing. I love how unique and interesting his game designs are, and you know what? I cannot believe that this designer actually pumps out 2 to 3 games a year, all brand new Euros, and the game I'm talking about is Amsterdam by Stefan Feld. Amsterdam is a re-implementation of one of his older games called Macau. And basically in Amsterdam, it's kind of like a pick up and deliver style game, but with some interesting, unique mechanisms. The first thing that players are going to do in a round is draft from 3 different types of cards. Worker cards, building cards, and district cards. Each of those cards are going to have a cube requirement that requires you to pay cubes in terms of resources to be able to activate their abilities. And the way you get resources in this game is kind of cool as well. So what's basically going to happen is players are going to roll a collection of dice, and based on the pip value, players are going to get that many resources, and they're going to place it on their little rotation rondel wheel. And the rondel wheel has all the dice values from 1 to 6 on them, and one spot that has a little arrow. And the arrow basically will dispense resource cubes into your active player that you can use to spend on buying or picking up goods from different warehouses or even activating cards. And what's really cool about this is that there's this weird, unique timing mechanism. If you take a die value with a pip number of 6, you get 6 resources, but you won't be able to use those resources for another 5 rounds. And so you're kind of mailing to yourself these resources that you don't get to use until future turns. And so you've got to really strategically think, should I take a 1 value pip so I can use it this turn, or should I take a 2 or 3 value pip and plan for 2 or 3 turns ahead? And as you create and reserve cards in front of you, you're pre-planning how you're going to spend your resources that you're getting now for those future cards. And if you reserve too many cards or you haven't been able to dispense and use them, you get a penalty. If the dispenser can't push any cubes out off the wheel, you also get a penalty. So it's just like, oh my goodness, it's managing. It really gives you that sense that you're really in this kind of warehousing industry where you've got to get the package, you've got to get the order, you've got to deliver it. You can also pick up little workers from the docks, deliver them to the colored ports that they want to go to. There's little market tiles where you can use cash to get some really big, strong, powerful bonuses. And so this interplay of planning out your resources, then gathering those resources, then using the resources to channel into different actions might allow you to create some really cool chaining combos, but also means that the game has a really nice, great exponential progression where you start out, you know, as if like you're a small business, but you're ending up now like an Amazon delivery service as you're just shuttling and trying to get all the goods that you need. My most anticipated board game of this year that I want to play straight off my shelf. Yes, I already own it, so I can play it like tomorrow if someone will actually play this game with me. It is a Stefan Feld game. It is, yes, I'm a Stefan Feld fan, a Feldian, the Fellowship of the Feldites, I don't know. This is a game that a lot of people have spoken about, and you know what, I've never had the chance to try it, so recently just got it, and now it's a shot up to #1 of my most anticipated games to try this year. It is a game called Trajan. The cover is a lot to be desired, but I've heard such great reviews and experiences that relate to this game. People say that Trajan is probably one of Stefan Feld's best, other than Castles of Burgundy. And you know what? It's a game I definitely want to table because it probably fulfills some of my point salad dreams. What people really like about this game is this Mancala mechanism. We've got a series of different colored rods that come in pairs, and you move them around the Mancala based on which bowl you pick up from and how many rods are in there. If you play games like Finca, this might kind of evoke that similar mechanism. And as you drop the different colors in the bowls, you're trying to match the colors up because you can acquire tiles where if you match a particular color and get it into that particular bowl, you'll get a bonus action. And there are different mini games, of course, in a Stefan Feld game that you can kind of play. You can get votes in the council, you can get different items, you can do some trading. There's a little area control area at the top of the board. But I am so intrigued by this Mancala rod placing mechanism that I'm sure this game has very little theme. It's definitely very dry and abstract feeling, but I just want to be able to play it because I just love Stefan Feld's puzzles. Every single game that Stefan Feld has released always has a unique, interesting take to it. While he's inspired by some of his older designs and sometimes inspired by other games, a lot of his games really stand the test of time because of how unique they are, how easy it is to actually grapple the round structures and the turn structures. And I always describe his games as like a point salad neural network of actions and nodes and points that you can kind of tap into. And so every time you pick up a piece of his and decide what action you're going to take, you're constantly torn by 4 or 5 other decisions about which one is the best one to make. And so this center point of different actions that you can take and how they consequentially lead to these other different points of activation means that your brain is constantly stretched and in a really good way. So whilst this one is still in its shrink wrap, I cannot wait to get this to the table and just really see what this game is like when I play it for the first time. So, what did you think of my top 10 anticipated game list? Yeah, these are games I kind of feel a little bit guilty about because I'm like, ooh, I should play them a lot more. But now after making this video, I kind of feel rejuvenated energy to try and get these games more to the table. And yeah, I'm excited to do so. What are your top 10 anticipated games for the year? Are there 10 games in your collection that you really want to play more of? Please let me know what they are in the comments section below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, opinions, and stories and start a conversation with you. If you really enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. If you want to see more board game content, then head over to my main YouTube page. There are hundreds of YouTube videos that I've made over the last 10 years. And if you really want to buy me a coffee every month, which I would truly appreciate, then head over to my Patreon page. Otherwise, I hope your next board game experience is a lovely one.